He was waiting for his mail-order bride, but an enigmatic Chinese woman showed up. He lived a quiet life in a small town where nothing much ever changed. Every morning he woke up before the sun, made a simple breakfast, and went to work without speaking to many people. His job paid the bills, but it did not fill the empty space inside him. When the day ended, he returned to a silent house where only the ticking clock reminded him that time was moving forward. He was not always alone. Years ago, he believed his life would follow a normal path: marriage, family, laughter filling the house. But life did not turn out that way. Some relationships ended before they truly began. Others faded because of distance, misunderstanding, or different goals. Over time, he stopped trying as hard. Friends got busy with their own families and invitations slowly stopped coming. At first, he told himself he was fine. He had work, health, and a roof over his head. But as the years passed, the loneliness became harder to ignore. Evenings felt longer. Weekends felt empty. Sometimes he sat on the couch and stared at nothing, wondering how his life became so quiet. One night, unable to sleep, he scrolled through his phone, not looking for anything special. That was when he came across a website offering international marriage services. He closed it quickly, feeling unsure and slightly embarrassed. But the idea stayed in his mind. Days later, he returned to the site, this time reading carefully. The profiles were simple. Short descriptions. Smiling photos. Stories of women hoping for a stable life, respect, and partnership. He was not looking for perfection. He only wanted someone to share meals with, talk to at the end of the day, and grow old beside. He spent weeks thinking about it. Was this the right way? Was he being foolish? Deep down, he knew traditional paths had not worked for him. This felt like a chance, uncertain, but still a chance. Eventually, he registered. The process was slow and careful. Forms, documents, video calls arranged through translators. He tried to be honest about who he was and what kind of life he lived. He did not promise luxury or excitement. He promised stability, patience, and respect. That was when he saw her profile. Her photo stood out, not because of beauty alone, but because of her calm expression. She did not smile widely like others. Her eyes seemed thoughtful, almost distant. Her profile description was short and simple. She said she valued peace, family, and honesty. Their communication was limited. Messages were translated, often brief. Still, something about her felt real. She did not ask for expensive gifts or grand promises. She asked about his daily life, his work, and his town. As weeks turned into months, he grew attached to the idea of her. Not a fantasy, but a possibility. Someone real, somewhere far away, also hoping for a new beginning. When the agency informed him that travel arrangements were being finalized, his heart raced. The date was set. Soon she would arrive. He began preparing his home. He cleaned rooms that had not been used in years. He bought new dishes, extra blankets, and small decorations he thought might make the place feel warmer. He wondered if she would like the view from the window or the quiet street outside. At night, he imagined simple moments. Sharing dinner, walking together, learning about each other's cultures. He knew it would not be easy. There would be misunderstandings, silence, and adjustment. Still, he believed effort could turn strangers into partners. As the arrival day approached, his emotions shifted between excitement and fear. What if they did not connect? What if expectations were wrong? He reminded himself that real life was never perfect. On the morning of her arrival, he woke up earlier than usual. He barely ate breakfast. He checked his phone repeatedly, reading the agency's messages again and again. Everything seemed confirmed. He dressed carefully, choosing clothes that made him feel confident but not flashy. Before leaving the house, he paused for a moment, looking around. For the first time in years, the house did not feel completely empty. It felt like something was about to change. The drive to the meeting location felt longer than usual. His hands tightened on the steering wheel. His mind replayed every message they had exchanged. He wondered what her voice would sound like in person. Would she be nervous too? He stood quietly, scanning faces, holding a small sign with her name, just as instructed. Minutes passed, then more minutes. Just as doubt began to creep in, he noticed a woman standing a short distance away. She held a small bag and looked around cautiously. Her posture was reserved, her movements slow and careful. She seemed unsure, like someone stepping into an unfamiliar world. He looked again. Something about her matched the photo, but also didn't. She seemed more serious, more guarded. Her clothes were simple, her expression unreadable. Their eyes met briefly. She looked away, then back again. He took a step forward. At that moment, he felt a mix of hope and uncertainty he had never felt before. Whatever was about to happen, his life was no longer standing still. Something unexpected had begun. He stood still for a moment, unsure whether to move closer or wait. The woman across from him seemed just as uncertain. She held her small bag tightly, as if it were the only familiar thing she had in this new place. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, taking everything in. When she looked back at him, there was caution in her face, but also quiet strength. He stepped forward and gently said her name. His voice sounded strange to his own ears, softer than usual. She nodded slightly, as if confirming something to herself. When she spoke, her words were careful and slow. Her accent was strong, and some words were hard to understand, but her tone was polite. They stood facing each other, two strangers brought together by paperwork and promises. There was no dramatic greeting, no warm embrace, just an awkward pause and a shared understanding that this moment mattered. He offered to take her bag. She hesitated, then handed it to him. The small action felt important, like the first step across an invisible line. As they walked toward the exit, he tried to make small conversation. He asked if the trip was tiring. She nodded and said it was long. Her answers were short but respectful. Outside, the air felt cooler. She wrapped her arms around herself and he noticed. Without thinking too much, he offered his jacket. She looked surprised, then accepted it with a quiet thank you. That simple exchange eased some of his tension. During the drive, silence filled the car. He did not want to overwhelm her with questions. Instead, he pointed out small landmarks, the grocery store, the park, the quiet streets. She listened, watching through the window. Occasionally, she nodded. Once or twice, she asked simple questions, her curiosity carefully controlled. When they arrived at the house, he carried her bag inside. She stood near the door, unsure whether to step further. He showed her the room he had prepared. Clean sheets, soft lighting, and a small table by the window. She placed her bag down and slowly sat on the edge of the bed. She thanked him again, this time more clearly. Her voice was soft but steady. He realized then how tired she must be. He told her she could rest and that dinner would be ready later. She nodded, clearly relieved. In the kitchen, he stood still for a long moment, listening to the quiet. The house felt different now. Not loud or joyful, but full in a new way. There was another presence, another life under the same roof. That evening they sat across from each other at the table. The meal was simple. He worried it might not suit her taste, but she ate slowly and said it was good. He noticed how carefully she held her utensils, how every movement seemed thoughtful. The conversation was slow. They talked about the journey, the weather, and the house. When he asked about her family, she paused. Her eyes lowered, and she gave a short answer saying they lived far away. He did not press further. Later, she excused herself and returned to her room. He remained at the table, staring at the empty chair across from him. The day had not gone as he imagined. It was not uncomfortable, but it was not warm either. Still, it was real. The next morning, he woke early, as usual. When he heard movement in the house, his heart skipped slightly. She came into the kitchen quietly, already dressed. She greeted him politely and began helping with breakfast without being asked. Her movements were careful, almost formal. As days passed, a routine slowly formed. They shared meals, exchanged polite words, and respected each other's space. But something felt off. She rarely smiled. She avoided long conversations. At times he noticed her staring out the window for long periods, lost in thought. He tried to learn more about her, but answers came slowly. When he mentioned plans they had discussed through the agency, she listened without reaction. It was as if she were present, but only partly. One afternoon, he decided to gently bring up paperwork details. He wanted to make sure everything was correct. When he mentioned a specific form, her expression changed. Just for a moment, worry crossed her face before she hid it. She said everything was handled. Her voice was firm, more confident than before. He nodded, but a small doubt settled in his mind. That night, he lay awake thinking. He remembered how the agency had assured him everything was clear. Yet something about her behavior did not match what he expected. It was not wrong, just different. Still, he noticed small things that softened his concern. She always cleaned up after herself. She thanked him for even the smallest help. Once, when he came home tired, she had prepared tea without saying a word. The gesture felt sincere. One evening while watching television, he heard her laugh softly at something on the screen. It was brief, but it surprised him. The sound felt real, unguarded. When she noticed him looking, she quickly turned away, embarrassed. Moments like that made him want to be patient. A week passed, then another. He began to realize that whatever story she carried, it was not one she was ready to share. And maybe, he thought, trust could not be rushed. Perhaps both of them were adjusting in their own way. One afternoon while organizing documents, he noticed something unusual. A date did not line up. It was minor, but enough to catch his attention. He told himself not to jump to conclusions. Still, the doubt returned. That evening, he asked her gently if everything was all right. She looked at him for a long time before answering. Her eyes showed tiredness, not physical, but emotional. She said she needed time. He did not want to force answers. Yet he could not ignore the feeling that their meeting was not as simple as it appeared. As he turned off the lights that night, he understood one thing clearly. The woman who had arrived was not just shy or reserved. She was carrying something heavy, something unspoken. And whatever it was, it had already become part of his life. The days continued to pass quietly, but the silence between them began to feel heavier than before. It was no longer just the silence of two strangers. It felt like a wall built from unspoken thoughts. They lived under the same roof, shared the same meals, yet walked through different inner worlds. He noticed small patterns forming in her behavior. Every morning she woke up early, often before him. She moved softly around the house, as if afraid of making noise. She kept her belongings neatly arranged and never left anything out of place. It was clear she valued order, but it also felt like she was trying not to take up too much space. When he came home from work, she usually asked how his day was. Her question was polite, almost rehearsed. When he answered, she listened carefully but rarely shared much in return. If he asked about her day, she would say it was fine, even if nothing had happened. Sometimes he caught her watching him when she thought he wasn't looking. Her expression was thoughtful, almost curious, as if she were studying him, trying to understand what kind of person he really was. The moment their eyes met, she would quickly look away. He tried not to let the distance bother him, but late at night, when the house was quiet, his thoughts grew louder. He wondered if he had made a mistake. Not because she was unkind, but because something important seemed missing. There was no warmth yet, no connection beyond courtesy. Still, he reminded himself that trust takes time. He had chosen this path knowing it would not be easy. One evening, a sudden storm rolled in. Rain tapped against the windows, and thunder echoed in the distance. The power went out without warning, leaving the house in darkness. He reached for a flashlight and found her standing still in the hallway, her face pale, her hands clenched. Without thinking, he spoke calmly, telling her everything was fine. He lit a candle and placed it on the table. The small flame filled the room with a soft glow. She slowly relaxed, sitting down and taking a deep breath. They sat there in silence, listening to the rain. For the first time, the silence did not feel uncomfortable. It felt shared. She spoke first. Her words came slowly, carefully chosen. She said storms used to frighten her when she was younger. He nodded, understanding without asking for more. He told her that storms had always reminded him that life could change suddenly, without warning. She looked at him with interest, as if seeing him differently for the first time. After that night, something shifted, though only slightly. She began to speak a bit more. Not about her past, but about simple things. Books she liked, music she enjoyed, food she missed from home. Her voice softened when she talked about familiar memories, even if she kept them vague. He listened closely, never interrupting. He realized she was careful not to reveal too much, but each small detail felt like a gift. One afternoon, while cleaning together, she accidentally knocked over a photo frame. The picture fell face down. She froze as if she had done something wrong. He quickly told her it was okay and picked it up. It was an old photo of him with his parents. He explained who they were and how much they had meant to him. She listened quietly, then asked questions. Simple ones, but sincere. It was the most curious he had seen her. Later that day, he noticed her sitting alone, holding a small object in her hand. It was a necklace with a simple design. When she realized he was there, she quickly hid it. He pretended not to notice, respecting her privacy. That night, she did something unexpected. She cooked a meal from her home country. The smell filled the house, warm and comforting. When she placed the food on the table, her hands trembled slightly. He tasted it and smiled. He told her it was very good. For a moment, pride flickered across her face before she looked down again. But he saw it, and it mattered. Despite these small steps, the questions in his mind did not disappear. Some documents still didn't make sense. Certain details from the agency felt incomplete. He wondered if she fully understood the arrangement or if something had changed along the way. One evening, he gently asked her if she felt safe here. The question surprised her. She hesitated, then nodded. She said he was kind and that she appreciated his patience. Her voice carried honesty. Then she added something unexpected. She said not everyone she met had been kind to her. The words were simple, but the weight behind them was heavy. He didn't ask who or when. He only told her that she didn't owe him anything except honesty when she was ready. She looked at him, her eyes shining slightly, and nodded. Days later, he noticed her standing in front of a mirror, staring at her reflection. Her face looked tired, not from lack of sleep, but from holding something inside for too long. That evening, she sat across from him and said she wanted to learn more about his life here. She asked about his job, his routine, and his plans for the future. The questions felt different this time, less formal, more personal. He answered openly. He told her he didn't expect perfection. He only wanted respect, effort, and understanding. He admitted that he was learning too, and that he didn't always know the right thing to say. She listened closely. When he finished, she stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that stayed with him. She said that sometimes people arrive somewhere without knowing if they are allowed to stay, not just in a place, but in someone's life. He understood what she meant, even though she didn't explain further. At night, he lay awake thinking about her words. He realized that she wasn't distant because she didn't care. She was distant because she was afraid. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of being sent away. Afraid of trusting the wrong person again. The next day, he made a small change. He invited her to join him on a short walk. Nothing serious. Just a walk around the neighborhood. She agreed, hesitant but willing. As they walked side by side, the air felt lighter. She pointed out small things. A tree she liked. A cat resting on a wall. She smiled once, genuinely, without hiding it. In that moment, he felt something new. Not certainty, but understanding. Whatever mystery surrounded her, it wasn't built on deception alone. It was built on survival. And slowly, without either of them fully realizing it, the distance between them began to shrink, just enough to let the truth come closer. The change between them was subtle but real. The house no longer felt like a place where two strangers avoided each other. There were still quiet moments, but they were no longer empty. They carried meaning. Shared glances, small smiles, a sense that something important was slowly unfolding. Yet beneath that progress, a quiet tension remained. He felt it every time he looked at the documents on his desk, every time he noticed her hesitation when official matters were mentioned. The feeling told him that the truth was still standing just out of reach. One afternoon, he received a message from the agency. It was short and formal, asking for a follow-up confirmation regarding timelines. At first it seemed routine, but as he read it again, he noticed a detail that didn't match what he had been told before. His chest tightened. That evening he waited until they had finished dinner. The plates were cleared and the room was calm. He didn't want to sound accusing or harsh. He simply wanted clarity. He told her he had received a message and that something didn't add up. He asked gently if there was anything he should know. She didn't answer right away. She stared at her hands resting on the table. Her fingers trembled slightly. The silence stretched longer than usual. He began to worry that he had pushed too far. Then she took a deep breath. When she spoke, her voice was quieter than ever, but also more honest. She said there were things she hadn't explained before because she didn't know how. She said she was afraid that once he knew everything, he would change his mind. He listened without interrupting. She explained that her journey had not begun as clearly as he believed. The arrangement was not something she had planned for a long time. It came after a series of difficult events that left her feeling trapped and unsure of her future. She said she felt pressured by circumstances, not by people, but by life itself. She admitted that some details had been simplified during the process. Not completely false, but incomplete. She had agreed because she needed stability, safety, and time to breathe. She did not know what else to do. As she spoke, her words came slowly at first, then faster, as if holding them back had been exhausting. She said she never meant to deceive him, she only wanted a chance to start over. He felt many emotions at once. Confusion, concern, disappointment, but also understanding. He asked one important question. He asked if she had come willingly. She looked up at him then. Her eyes were steady. She said yes. She said she chose to come. She just didn't know how to explain the fear she carried with her. That answer mattered more than any document. He leaned back in his chair, taking a moment to think. This was not the simple story he expected. It was more complicated, more human. He told her that honesty mattered to him, but so did intention. He said he needed time to process what she had shared. He did not raise his voice. He He did not threaten. He simply spoke the truth. She nodded, accepting that. That night, neither of them slept well. He lay awake, replaying everything in his mind. He thought about why he had chosen this path in the first place. It was never about control or convenience. It was about connection, about building something real. She lay awake too, staring at the ceiling, unsure if she had just lost the only place that felt safe in a long time. The next few days were quieter than before. Not tense, but careful. They moved around each other gently, as if afraid to disturb something fragile. Then, one evening, he surprised her. He told her he wanted to understand more. Not to judge, but to truly understand. He asked her to tell him about her life before she came, only what she was comfortable sharing. She hesitated, then agreed. She spoke about growing up in a place where expectations were heavy and choices were limited. About responsibilities that came early. About learning to stay quiet, to adapt, to survive. She did not describe dramatic events. She described pressure, loss of control, and the feeling of being invisible. He listened, his heart heavy. She said that when the opportunity came, it felt like an escape, but also a risk. She didn't know him, but she sensed kindness through their conversations. That kindness gave her courage. He realized then that while he had been waiting for companionship, she had been searching for safety. That difference changed how he saw everything. He told her something important in return. He told her that while he had expectations, he was not looking for ownership or obligation. He was looking for partnership. And partnership required choice, not fear. She listened closely. When he finished, she wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed. But he didn't look away. In the following days, something new appeared between them. Honesty. Not complete, not perfect, but real. They began to talk more openly. About boundaries, about what they both wanted and what they didn't. He made it clear that she was not trapped. That if she decided this life was not for her, they would find a respectful solution. She became more relaxed, her movements less careful, her voice more natural. She laughed more easily. She even teased him once about his habit of overthinking. The moment surprised them both. However, the outside world did not pause for their progress. Another message arrived from the agency, requesting a meeting. The tone was more serious this time. He knew that whatever they discussed privately might soon need to be addressed formally. He told her about the message. Her face tightened, but she didn't withdraw. Instead, she asked if she could be present for the meeting. She said she wanted to face things honestly. He respected that. In that moment, he realized something important. The woman who arrived, uncertain and guarded, was no longer hiding. She was standing beside him, not behind him. Whatever came next would not be easy. There would be questions. There might be consequences, but there would also be clarity. As they sat together that evening, the weight of the future hung in the air. But for the first time since her arrival, it did not feel frightening. It felt shared. And sometimes, he thought, that was enough to turn an unexpected beginning into something real. The day of the meeting arrived sooner than expected. The morning felt heavier than usual. Neither of them spoke much during breakfast, but there was no coldness between them. Instead, there was focus. Whatever happened next would shape both of their lives. They traveled together, sitting side by side. She kept her hands folded in her lap, calm but alert. He noticed how different she seemed from the woman who first arrived with a small bag and uncertain eyes. Now she looked prepared, not fearless, but ready. The meeting was formal and quiet. Questions were asked, documents were reviewed, clarifications were requested. He answered honestly when spoken to. When it was her turn, she spoke carefully but clearly. She did not avoid responsibility, nor did she hide behind excuses. She explained her situation in simple words, just as she had explained it to him. There were moments when the room felt tense, but there were also moments of understanding. By the end, nothing dramatic happened. No sudden decisions, just a clear path forward and a reminder that choices carry weight. When they left the building, the air outside felt lighter, not because everything was resolved, but because nothing was hidden anymore. On the drive home, she thanked him, not for defending her, but for listening to her. She said that being heard mattered more than she ever realized. He told her something honest in return. He said that life had not given him what he expected, but maybe it had given him what he needed. Not certainty, but... That evening they sat together in the living room. No television. No distractions. Just quiet conversation. They talked about the future, not in detailed plans, but in possibilities. What life could look like if they continued together. What it could look like if they didn't. There was no pressure in the conversation. No promises made out of fear. only respect. Days turned into weeks. Their routine continued, but it felt different now. More natural, more balanced. She began taking interest in her surroundings. She explored the town, learned local customs, and slowly found comfort in small freedoms she never had before. He watched her change not into someone else but into herself. They still had disagreements. They still misunderstood each other at times. But instead of silence, they talked. Instead of distance, they chose patience. One afternoon, while walking together, she stopped suddenly and looked at him. She asked him a question she had been holding back for a long time. She asked why he stayed. He thought carefully before answering. He said he stayed because he saw effort, because he saw honesty grow where fear once lived, because what they were building was not based on illusion, but choice. Then she nodded. That night, she told him something important. She said she no longer felt like she was waiting for permission to exist. She felt like she belonged somewhere, not because she was required to, but because she was allowed to. Those words stayed with him. Months later, life settled into something steady, not perfect, not dramatic, but real. They shared responsibilities. They supported each other in small, meaningful ways. Some days were ordinary, some days were difficult, but none felt empty. He realized then that the life he had imagined was never meant to arrive the way he planned. It arrived differently, unexpectedly, quietly. And she realized that starting over did not mean erasing the past. It meant carrying it forward with strength. Their story did not end with a grand moment. It ended with something simpler and stronger, mutual understanding. One evening, as the sun set outside the window, they sat together, sharing tea in silence. The silence felt warm, not heavy. He looked around the room, once empty, now filled with signs of shared life. And for the first time in a long while, he felt at peace. Not because everything made sense, but because what mattered did.